So now we'll talk about triggering on the oscilloscope. So right now what you can see on the oscilloscope is the signal it obtains as it comes in, and it's scrolling very fast. So we need to make better sense of the signal. So what we want to do is actually use trigger. So trigger is right here and it's controlled by this knob. You can adjust it up and down. So it's displaying on the screen now. It's the orange line with the T on the left hand side. So as we move the trigger level up, it's now sitting in between the amplitude of the signal. And as you can see, the screen is acquiring a couple of periods of the wave. And what it's actually doing is, as the wave crosses the trigger level threshold, it's time aligning itself with the middle of the screen on the rising edge. As you can see, the middle of the screen is indicated by an orange T arrow on the very top. And you can also see that this waveform is actually flickering. That's because it's constantly acquiring the most recent couple of periods and displaying that and synchronizing it with the waves before. So the oscilloscope actually acquires a large part of the wave and stores it in the acquisition buffer. So if you want to see a different part of the wave, what you can do is adjust the knob, the horizontal position knob, and scroll through the buffer, as it only shows you a subsection of the wave, and it's always time aligned, indicated by the T arrow on the very top. You can scroll through left or right, and it takes you through different parts of the wave. So now let's take a look at the trigger menu. So there's a menu button right underneath trigger. Press it once. So that brings up your trigger menu. First up, the mode should be on edge, and your source should always be on the channel which your signal is being measured from. So in this case, channel 1. And then the next one is slope. So if you press slope once, it gives you on the rising edge, falling edge, or bidirectional. So on the rising edge just means that it time locks itself on the rising edge. That's where the trigger happens. And if I change this to the falling edge, as you can see, the T indication in the middle of the screen now is aligning with the falling edge. And if I change this to both directions, you're now getting both the falling as well as the rising edge on the screen. And so now we'll talk about different sweeping modes in triggering. So in order to demonstrate different sweeping modes, what I have here is an RC circuit. So I have 5 volts applied to the circuit, and it will be charging up the capacitor and discharging through the 10K resistor. So let's take a look at the sweeping modes. And how we get to the sweeping modes is by first turning on the triggering menu. So that turns it on by pressing it once, and then going across down the bottom, so pressing that. And right now what I have is on auto. And if I touch that to the RC circuit, you can see the signal charging and discharging, so bouncing up and then down. Now I'll change it to a single sweep. So what that does is actually capturing a single triggering moment. And I will adjust the time scale, the horizontal ones, by increasing it so it can catch a bigger part of the wave. So it's 200 milliseconds now, sorry. So if I touch that once, you can see the charge and discharging of the capacitor. And you should also notice that the run stop button has turned red, which means it's no longer acquiring more data. And if you want to catch it again, so what you do is press it once, so it's running again and acquiring more data, and then, as you can see, once I touch it, so that captures another frame.